Getting to know one's body and the emotional power of tactile experiences were primary themes in the film. So Alita's interactions with her world and its characters were critical to its success. The director encouraged us to allow Rosa to fully interact with the set and other actors, which added a whole level of complexity to our 3D integration solutions. Even in the backgrounds, cyborgs and extras were meticulously painted out or replaced or augmented with digital parts. The placement of these elements was especially difficult in stereo when the design profile of digital characters was different than the actors or the prosthetics didn't line up. Every hand, foot and body contact was adjusted to lock contact points. Rotor shapes were merged with deep data to marry digital characters with real actors, and stereo alignment was tweaked throughout each shot, sometimes per frame.
You can feel this.
Yes.
Stereo disparity between the plate and CG was often warped, and deep projection techniques were used to blend the two, so the contact points between digital and human characters were believable. Brick maps were used for smoke, dust and dirt, along with nuke particles and eddy simulations to add complexity to the broad set extensions and entirely CG districts. A library of hand-animated neon signs and billboards were placed in the environments to add movement for a busy, vibrant city. A system was developed to create deep 3D volumes which mimic physically based atmospheric models. We created automation for additional weathering and staining on the buildings using deep projections, material IDs and procedural texture maps. We used Nuke's particle simulation tools, along with Eddy, for simulating and rendering interactive clouds, smoke, dust and fog right inside of Nuke. Artists had the creative control to design the look, with the ability to lay out fluid containers, adjust the size, volume and density, wind direction, strength and turbulence, and added geometry for the fluids to interact with.
The underworld fight is the embodiment of live-action manga. We created dramatic lighting, dynamic camera motion, and speed ramps to emphasize key poses and story beats directly from the iconic hand-drawn 2D cells of the source material. We built a detailed, fully contiguous environment that allowed us maximum flexibility with fight choreography and virtual cameras. Our fizz light and fizz camera tools were used to mimic practical cinematography with accurate tungsten temperature, depth of field, and in-camera white balance shifts. Proprietary Vari-Speed tools meant animators could fine-tune the stylized action on top of the performance capture in extreme slow motion, while simulation artists worked in real time. Great care was taken to shape the underwater sequence. Depth-driven color changes and caustics on the lake bed were created by accurately calculating sunlight paths refracted by the lake surface. We created a sense of murkiness to add mystery and tight close-up camera work to reveal the ship to the audience in the same way Alita experienced it. We composed the lighting inside the ship to invoke a sense of uncertainty as the ship recognizes Alita's presence and begins to boot up. To convey the feeling of an enclosed, overgrown environment, digital gobo grids were created to throw patterned shadows onto Alita and add drama to the scene. We added a red signal and used underlighting combined with inset lighting to create tension. The Motorball Tryouts is a fast-moving, high-octane action sequence that was almost entirely CG. We initially choreographed the cameras to mirror Formula 1 using multiple views ranging from POV, dynamic spider cams, and embedded lockoffs. We then leveraged the freedom of the virtual camera to add more dynamic, accelerated moves to match the energy of the animation. Working from storyboards and script pages, animators keyframed action vignettes with strong silhouettes, posing, and line of action. Finally, using stadium-style lighting as the base, we arranged discrete lights per shot to create a pulsing effect for a more frenetic feel.
Animators created a digital performance for Alita that is deeply human. A custom capture suit that tracked actress Rosa Salazar's breathing and a new dual camera setup helped reveal deliberate performance choices and her subconscious muscle movements in the moment. Capturing Rosa's interactions on set with other actors was essential to forging a consistent on-screen portrayal of a young woman's journey to discover who she was and who she will become. Alita's facial model has over 2,500 shapes that create her full range of expression, from drama to action to eating and talking.
You have any chocolate?
Dynamic scans were used to ensure keyline movements on the Rosa actor puppet matched the Alita character puppet. For her eyes, we developed a new geometry for the iris and a Houdini simulation toolset that let modelers and animators control intra-eye movement to enhance the realism. Alita's first cyber doll body has 8,000 digitally handcrafted parts with over 800 pieces in the hands alone.
Maybe I'll see you around.
Alita's emotional journey is driven by her connection to the people and the tactile experiences that awaken long-dormant emotions. Surprise reactions, delicate tears, and more intimate interactions were all an essential part of allowing the audience to connect to Alita. Like any young actor in a similar role, Alita has 125 outfits and 47 hair grooms, including unique eyebrow and eyelash styling. During the underwater sequence, new simulation solvers were created for coupled hair, cloth, and water interaction, as well as surface interaction as she emerges. Upon reuniting with her berserker body, Alita's physicality transforms and she takes on a more mature, more powerful form. Animators were careful to maintain Rosa's recognizable locomotion, but evolved it to reveal this important transformation. Toward the end of the film, when she reaches her full potential, animators keyframed much of the exciting motorball sequences with strong silhouettes and posing to accentuate her control over otherworldly power.
Rosa Salazar's performance as Alita is the driving force behind this fully digital human character. Rosa was captured live on set, performing with other actors for nearly all of the 2,400 shots Alita appears in. A custom capture suit that tracked her breathing was used for body performance, along with a dual camera face rig that provided depth-accurate control points. Performance data, combined with dynamic facial scans, gave artists a much more nuanced understanding of how Rosa's face behaved, allowing them to create a full-resolution Rosa puppet that contained over 2,500 face shapes that animators then retargeted over to Alita. This extra validation was particularly valuable in complex close-up shots where micro-movements were essential to sell tactile experiences. Alita's cyberdoll body had over 8,000 digitally handcrafted pieces, with more than 800 pieces in the hands alone. We developed a procedural pore, wrinkle, and microgeometry system for extreme close-ups, where we needed more texture resolution in the skin. Fully geometric eyes were built with simulated iris fibers that could be adjusted dynamically as the camera passes through. The colourful, eclectic world of Iron City started with a large Texas backlot and was extended digitally by creating building clusters with procedurally generated bespoke details. Brick maps were used for smoke, dust and dirt, along with eddy simulations in Nuke to add complexity to the broad set extensions and entirely computer-generated districts. Midground and background regions were procedurally generated using OpenStreetMap data from industrial areas of Nairobi and Panama. We created a physically based atmosphere model for our in-house renderer that accurately simulated light transport from the sun, incorporating ozone and procedurally generated clouds and a localized pollution layer. Additional weathering and staining was done with deep projections, material IDs, and procedural texture maps. The futuristic humans that inhabit Iron City pose their own challenges.
You can see what you're up against.
Rotor shapes were merged with deep data to marry digital or partly digital characters with real actors. Stereo disparity between the plate and CG was often warped, so deep projection techniques were used to blend the two for accurate contact points. The crashed warship environment utilized a single physically based lighting rig for both above and below water. We also made significant improvements to our water rendering approach, allowing us to render everything in a single physically plausible frame, including accurately modeled scattering, attenuation, and caustics. We also developed a new dynamics framework which allowed us to calculate water, hair, and cloth in a single coupled simulation. Cinematography also played a key role in the style of the film. For Underworld, we directly matched key beats and poses from the iconic manga source material, which required a hyper-real approach to camera. We developed vari-speed tools to allow animators to fine-tune the stylized action on top of the performance capture in extreme slow motion, while simulation artists were able to work in real time. This approach carried through to the high-octane motorball sequence, which was primarily CG. We started choreographing the cameras to mirror Formula 1, using multiple views ranging from POV, dynamic spider cams, and embedded lock-offs. We then leveraged the freedom of the virtual camera to add more dynamic, accelerated moves to match the energy of the animation. The action was accentuated by vibrant lighting cues and the pulsing power of a packed nighttime stadium crowd witnessing a dramatic showdown.